We're going to call this meeting of the TRPA Governing Board to order. It is Thursday, May 28th, and it is 10:07 a.m. I'd like to say welcome to Chris Wood from Washoe County and to Ruben Rodriguez, who's here for the Secretary of State. Welcome up. Let's move on to agenda item 2, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could please stand and rise and join me.
United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all. We are now on to agenda item number 2, which is the public comment. Oh, actually, we need to do our roll call. Maria, can you please call the roll to determine our quorum?
Miss Alding. Here. Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mr. Bass.
Here.
Ms. Conrad Seda. Ms. Faustinos. Ms. Gustafson.
Here.
Mr. Guthrow.
Here.
Ms. Hayes. Mr. Wood.
Here.
Mr. Henigman. Mr. Keykefer.
Here.
Ms. Lane.
Here.
Ms. Loomer.
Here.
Mr. Rice. Ms. Williamson.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Maria. Moving on to agenda item number 2, this is our public comment period for items that are on the agenda. Any member of the public wishing to address the governing board on any agenda item may do so at this time. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The comment period is reserved again for items on the agenda. If you're attending today to make comments on the U.S. Forest Service Caldor fire restoration, that public comment period time is the second public period time for items that are not on the agenda. And that will be right before lunch. Just as a note on that, we will also take it will be 3 minutes per speaker on that public comment period. And we will hear comments for up to, but no more than 60 minutes on that issue. So with those statements on the public comment, if you're wanting to make comment in the room on any item that is on the agenda, please come forward at this time.
Good morning, Gavin Feiger, Keep Tahoe Blue Policy Director. Just very briefly, want to say thanks. 1 year ago today, we were, Jesse, my coworker, and I were up here asking for some actions around accountability, especially around permit conditions and some of the, basically saying that the impacts from a project don't stop at approval. And you all responded. So very excited we got a preview from staff of the accountability dashboard. Really excited to see that. It's going to help us a lot, me a lot personally. I've been doing that with Excel spreadsheets for years. So really, really excited and thank you. And looking forward to seeing how some of that information will be conveyed to the public, which I think will be the next step. So that's it.
Thanks, Gavin. Anyone else wishing to make public comment on any item on the agenda at this time? Okay, can we go online, please? Catherine, is there anyone online wishing to make comment on the agenda today? This morning?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 hands raised online. The first hand raised is Alan Miller. Alan, please unmute to make your comment.
Yes, hello. Hello, board members and interested persons. I'm Alan Miller, a professional civil and environmental engineer with expertise in water quality and solid waste management from my 25-year career with the Lahontan Water Quality Control Board. I see you have a field tour planned to the Boatworks Mall later today, and then tomorrow you will have your strategic planning retreat. And these are the agenda items I wish to comment on. I don't know why the Boatworks Mall is being toured. I assume some major redevelopment is being planned, like for Tahoe Keys Marina, discussed at APC meeting last month, since the Boatworks Mall abuts the Tahoe City Marina, the largest marina on the North Shore. I inspected that marina in late 2022 and reported to you 3 years ago today that the aging marinas, including that one, have deteriorating plastic structures such as the docks and decking. I don't expect time has improved its condition. I urge you to take a close look while you're there at the Boatworks Mall. See all the decaying plastics in need of replacement to prevent the further contamination of Lake Tahoe with microplastics. Replacements with wood, metal, and stone, and nothing else, as I've advocated for years now. That's what's needed. Take a good close look while you're there. Last December, you approved code amendments for certain shoreline structures like rock crib piers on the recommendation of APC. I'm here to remind you that recommendation was conditioned on further amending the code to prevent new plastic piers and replacements of existing plastic piers with plastic. Staff committed to include the need for amendments to address plastics in the shore zone, both before the APC and the governing board. Lake Tahoe has extraordinary contamination with microplastics, with over 1 million square feet of plastic surfaces in Lake Tahoe rotting away. It's been 6 months, and I reported to you last month that the docks in the huge Tahoe Keys Beach and Harbor Association area adjacent to the Tahoe Keys Marina were being replaced with plastics. Well, they sure need replacement, but with wood, metal, and stone. While TRPA idles on the amendments, I remind and urge you to give these code amendments the highest priority in your strategic planning if you want to escape being forever known as the Tahoe Regional Plastics Agency. Keep Tahoe pure, microplastics endure, use wood, metal, and stone in the shore zone forevermore. Thank you.
The next hand raised is Ann Nichols. Ann, please unmute to make your comment.
Good morning, Ann Nichols, North Tahoe Preservation Alliance. When you go to the Boatworks project, which I think was in foreclosure, but in any case, it is a stream environment, and they've always had to have it, the Boatworks pumps underneath, because the marina and the metal pilings hold water on the site. So it's got some problems. But also regarding TRPA's development tracking system, which is not, it's still just counting units and does not adequately track what really matters, which is people and peak occupancy. Conversions from floor area to TAUs look neutral on paper, but actually all of this, if it was actually calculated transparently, conversions could result in 32,000 more people if you do four units per 4 people per unit. That's a 65% increase in the existing population. So we need to know how many CFA to TAU conversions have occurred basin-wide, how many conversions are going to increase occupancy potential, how many conversions are reflected in peak population analysis, and are conversions treated as neutral even when they intensify seasonal occupancy. Where is the cumulative conversion ledger publicly maintained? We gotta count people, not units. Thank you so much.
And the last hand raised is Roxana Dunn. Roxana, please unmute to make your comment.
Roxana Dunn, Incline Village resident, and I am speaking to agenda item 7C, the transportation report. In February of this year, Nick Haven and Michelle Glickert from TRPA's transportation staff and Nick Very from NDOT participated in our Citizens Advisory Board meeting discussing transportation. Our primary objective in this meeting was to understand the process by which projects are considered and approved around Lake Tahoe. This reflected our frustration that projects in the Washoe Tahoe area have not been included in FTIP grant submissions during the past several years. In the past 10 years, I am aware of 3 pedestrian deaths on SR 28 inside in the town center in Incline Village, a distance of less than a mile. I don't know how this compares to other areas, but that number does seem alarming to me. At our CAB meeting, we discussed particular areas of concern, our pedestrian crosswalks that don't provide sufficient safety mechanisms, such as lead timing, our lack of flashers on some of the crosswalks. We have flashers on the streets, but not into the driveways that feed into the streets. And then we also noted the excessive speed in the area. Unlike all the other towns on the north end of the lake, Our speed limit is 35 miles per hour, whereas theirs drops to 25. Subsequent to that meeting, Helen Neff, whom you may know, and I met with Michelle Glickert and Kevin Very to discuss specific concerns raised by citizens at our CAB meetings. And we're very pleased with their response and are, for the first time in 5 or so years, optimistic that some of the issues will be addressed. Governors, I am speaking to enlist your support in addressing safety issues in Incline Village. We owe it to our residents and the tourists who fuel our local economy to provide a safe environment. And a big thank you to Nick, Michelle, and Kevin for their continued support and advocacy. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there are no other hands raised to comment.
Thank you. We will close our first round of public comment at this time. Next, agenda item 4 is approval of agenda. Staff, are there any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, thank you. This is Julie Regan, TRPA's Executive Director. I appreciated your clarifications at the beginning. There are no changes. I will just, for the benefit of the public, since it is a 2-day meeting, explain a little bit more of the flow. We will be actually not adjourning this morning after the last public interest comment, item 11. We will recess and have lunch with the board and then have our field tour. So we're hoping to have the field tour commence after lunch. And then we will recommence with the strategic planning session tomorrow. And there will be additional public comment opportunities tomorrow at the strategic planning session. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Reagan. Let's move on to agenda item 5, which is approval of minutes. We have a draft set of minutes from the April 22nd meeting on page 19 of our packet. Any changes? No? Okay, and then I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the governing board meeting of April 22nd, 2026 as submitted.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to the TRPA consent calendar. There are 5 items on consent, which will be reviewed, which were all reviewed, by the Ops and Governance Committee. Brooke, can we please have a readout on ops from this morning?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Ops and Governance met this morning, and we are recommending approval of items A, B, C, and D.
Thank you. I am looking, unless there are any questions or comments from the board, I am looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there any further discussion? Please. Brooke?
We didn't look at E. No. That wasn't something that was before us,
Thank you.
but I would recommend approval.
Yes,
Right.
my motion can include all items. This is Cindy Gustafson for the record. My motion can include all items on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Member Gustafson. So we have a motion to approve all items on consent. Any further discussion from the board? Maria, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Alding,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Conrad Seda, Mr. Guthrow,
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos, Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Mr. Keykeper,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman, Mr. Rice, Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us then to agenda item 7, which is our planning matters. Agenda item 7A is on page 75, and I believe staff Ken is going to take us through this. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Ken Caseman. I'm the Reporting and Accountability Department Director. We wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about the development that's allowed under the regional plan and what's currently remaining in those balances, as well as some of the current development patterns and trends that we're seeing with that data in order to set some of the context for the planning discussions that you'll have throughout the day today and tomorrow. And as well to to help inform some of the policy choices that are coming up in the Cultivating Communities program. So really wanted to provide just this context. And on the next slide, please. As we do with so many of these, we're going to set context to the presentation itself as well, and remind that when we think about development in the Tahoe region, development was spiraling out of control as we saw the lead up to the 1960s Olympics. And even afterward, you see here on the slide, development was trending from 300, 500 parcels developed a year to over 1,000 in the 1960s in the lead up to the Olympics. And then with the attention and the national desire to come to Tahoe after the Olympics, it continued into the 1970s with over 1,600 parcels a year developed in the region. And that led to, obviously, the creation and the formation of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and the Bi-State Compact. Next slide, please. And what we saw is through the regional plan and the creation of the agency, that growth was still continuing. And so the 1980 compact then amended the compact, and installed the idea of thresholds. And if we click on the next slide, what we see is that subsequently the 1987 regional plan established the growth control system that really did lock down the development rates. And you see here, it was a novel system that both addressed the unique situation that the vast majority of the parcels in the region were already developed when we were establishing this regional plan, that then set out how the remaining development was going to be allocated and built, but also acknowledged this existence of a vast array of development that was already on the ground when the regional plan was adopted. And just to set that in context, and we see it here, there were roughly about 42,000 existing residential units at the time that the plan was adopted. And the growth cap really established at that time about a 20% headroom of about 7,500 units that would be developed over the lifespan of that 1987 regional plan. So it was really about how you meter out that remaining development or the additional headroom. But if we look at our existing development today, the average house, the average residential unit in the region was built in 1975, over 50 years ago. And so we're still dealing with that legacy. And again, the regional plan set out specific policies for how you deal with existing development, as well as the new development that would be released through allocations and through the plan itself. The 87 plan metered out roughly 300 residential allocations a year. And in 2012, that was reduced to 130 units a year that we are currently metering out now. And we'll show this in a moment, but we're down to roughly about 6 years of remaining allocations that will be released annually. And then all of the residential allocations that are allowed under the regional plan will have been released to either TRPA or local jurisdiction pools to then be assigned to projects. So we're roughly about 6 years away from the culmination of that plan. Next slide, please. Now, when we talk about allocations from the regional plan and when we talk about our data, it's important to note that since the regional plan update in 2012, we have tracked every single allocation. And you can see here on the slide on the left, each residential allocation is individually numbered. And so we can assign that to a particular project or a particular parcel when there's a project associated with that. And we track every single transaction, including allocations, transfers, conversions, And all of this information then is rolled up into publicly accessible data on Lake Tahoe Info, so that we are showing the status of those development right pools and being able to report out on transfers and conversions. And we heard public comment, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But we are trying to make all this information publicly available so you can see how those development right changes are occurring. Next slide, please. When we look at total development capacity in the region, this is really starting to get into the meat of the data. Currently, there are just over 49,000 existing residential units that are located throughout the region. There are roughly about 400 units on the residential side that were previously existing, but have been removed, restored, and the units banked for future development. The 3,200 that we see here on the right-hand side, roughly about 6%, represents the remaining allocations that are allowed under the regional plan. This includes both residential allocations as well as bonus units that can be used for deed-restricted housing. They can be used for transfer and coverage retirement incentives as well. So that's really what we're talking about in terms of the universe of development. There's roughly about 7% remaining, and about 93% of what the regional plan would allow between existing and future development, about 93% is already existing today. Tourist accommodation units, again, roughly about 85% or just under 11,000 units are existing. And you see that 1,500 units that are banked. And just to spend a moment on that, that's really looking at the development around the South State Line, where the redevelopment project around Heavenly banked over 500 units in, I believe, around 2009, 2010, from the dated motels that were located in that area. Those units are still banked and sitting there awaiting future development, as well as units that have been reserved for development, like Homewood and Boulder Bay and or Waldorf Astoria. Some of the units that are reserved pending development are included in those banked units. But we see here also roughly 3% of the remaining allocations allowed under the regional plan for tourist accommodation units are available. On the commercial floor area, same thing. About 88% of our existing development is of the allowed development is existing. 4% is banked, and 7% is remaining in those pools. If we click to just once, so I just want to again reemphasize, as we look at these numbers, you can see here in this fortunately ugly green, the amount that was actually existing when the regional plan was adopted in 1987. And you see, again, the vast majority of what was going to be allowed through both the 87 plan and now the 2012 updates, the vast majority was already existing. In fact, for tourist accommodation units, we had more units existing before 1987 than we have today. Next slide, please. Now, again, when we talk about what the regional plan allows, these are those numbers, right? The regional plan allows certain additional residential allocations and residential bonus units for future development of residential units. It allows tourist bonus units, and it allows commercial floor area. And so roughly about 10,700 residential units would be allowed to be built under the regional plan, 400 tourist bonus units, and 1 million square feet of commercial floor area. This is on top of what was existing in 87. And you can see here, roughly 80% of the residential allocations have been assigned to projects, and vast majority of those have been built, about 78% of the total that was allowed. 60% of the bonus units have been assigned, but roughly only about 37% of those have been built. A lot of those that are reserved today are in various phases of development pipeline. And for the tourist bonus units, same thing, only about 15% of those are built. And a lot of them are, of the half that are reserved, are pending that future development at Homewood, at Boulder Bay, or Walt, and some of those types of projects. Most of the commercial floor area that has been reserved is built, but again, it's roughly about half of what the regional plan allows has actually been assigned to projects. Next slide, please. As we review just the high level of sort of combining existing development, I wanted to just spend a little bit of time. And one of the takeaways that you'll see from this slide, when we look at the existing residential units over time, I think one of the key messages here is there is not much change. And we'll see this on commercial and tourist as well. But that bar slightly moves up a little bit each year. And that is the growth management system working the way it's intended. We release 130 allocations a year, and we're seeing roughly 100 units built each year. And we'll go through the details, but you can see there is a little bit of an uptick in the last 2 years, certainly. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But generally, when we talk about new development or development in general for residential units, allocations represent roughly 56%, residential allocations, roughly 56%, and bonus units are another 14% or so. So about 70% of what that bottom chart shows, the additional units that are being added, are coming from the regional plan allotments. The rest are moving around existing development. Again, development that was already on the ground and has been removed, banked in those units, those parcels restored, and that development is now being transferred or converted to other properties in the region. Next slide, please. This is the view of commercial floor area, and again, the overall story is really not much change. You can see fluctuation here and there, but generally over the last, since the regional plan over the last 13 years, we've had a net change of less than 2,000 square feet of commercial floor area. There's really not a whole lot of change occurring. And what you see is there are new developments. Certainly the Bijou Marketplace, the Whole Foods property in South Lake Tahoe came online, but that's offset by some large scale removals that we're seeing in some of these other properties. And Tahoe City Lodge converted some commercial floor area that was on site, and other properties that are removing development as well. And we are seeing some of that commercial floor area convert to residential units. And so again, that the net change is not significant. Next slide. Same thing on tourist accommodation units. What we're seeing here towards the tail end is the removal of units at Motel 6, at Lakeside Inn, and some of these other properties, Knights Inn, where the Bijou Marketplace was. And so net, we're actually seeing a reduction over the last 13 years of about 400 units. And again, those are banked, likely to be either converted or utilized in other ways. And again, that is the goal of the regional plan, is to really identify what is the development type that's needed. And when we started to allow conversions, first through pilot projects and now through the Development Rights Initiative from 2018, it was really designed to direct development where it's needed. So you can convert unused commercial floor area to residential units when you need residential units. And that's really the regional plan working the way that it's intended and the way that this board has directed. Next slide, please. So to go back to where we're seeing additional residential units, what we're seeing, the vast majority, again, is allocations from the regional plan for residential. That 100 units roughly a year that are being added. And traditionally, residential allocations were the source for those new units. But what we're seeing, especially over the last 2 years, with the Sugar Pine Village in South Lake Tahoe, with the dorms at the Lake Tahoe Community College, a significant expansion of bonus units. And you can also see that earlier 48 units was the Aspens project in South Lake Tahoe as well. And so we definitely are seeing those opportunities. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of projects that are in the pipeline, but those projects do take time. And unless there's opportunities like the Sugar Pine Village, where there's a lot of outside push to get those projects done quickly, those projects certainly have changed over the last 2 years the way that new units are coming online. And we hope to see that continue, but a lot of it depends on those outside sources. What we are also seeing is an increase, and you can see again, in 2018, we allowed conversions, and steadily we are seeing more and more projects take advantage of that. But those projects, both transfers, conversions, and the use of banked units, are really representing roughly about 30% of the units that are developed over the last 13 years. And the banked units are primarily a lot of those units are units that are properties, houses that burned down in the Angora fire, that are being rebuilt from those units that were banked after the fire. So a lot of those units were those rebuilds. Next slide, please. Just to talk a little bit about sort of the geographic distribution for this is 2025. So where are these residential units located? And again, you can see they're dispersed throughout the region. But what we are seeing over the last 13 years, from the 2012 regional plan update to today, about 80% of the new units that have been constructed have been on the South Shore, and about 83% are in the California side. So we are seeing, particularly in Washoe County, just limitations on vacant lots and just not as much development for new units there. And in Placer County, similarly, I think part of what we're seeing is in starting last December, we started to lower the IPES line in Placer County that will allow more of those units to develop and those vacant parcels to develop. I think that has held back some of the growth in Placer County, as well as just overall market conditions and other factors. And so, but you can see here the geographic distribution of our residential units. Next slide, please. So I want to just address it again. We heard through public comment again today, but this idea that conversions are additive to these development caps, and we want to be clear that in order to convert a residential unit, what you're first doing is, or in this case, a tourist accommodation unit. What you're doing is you're removing that existing unit. You're restoring the land where that sits in order to then be able to convert that to a different use and use it either on site or somewhere else. And so in this case, you see that the tourist accommodation unit would drop by 1 at the regional scale, and the residential unit will go up by 1 when that unit is built. And so in order to convert from one to the other, you're really taking something from one pool of development and converting it to another pool of development. And that is going to change the regional totals. If you're transferring a unit, let's say you're taking a residential unit from one parcel and moving it to another parcel, that does not change the number of units built, the number of total units that you would have. But transfers do benefit us because, again, it's an opportunity to take aging development that may not have BMPs. It's an opportunity to take sensitive development that may be in a sensitive area or in a wetland and move that to a more appropriate location on a high capability parcel, to move it closer to our town centers where we have more services. And so really that is, again, the regional plan and the transfer program doing what it's intended to do, which is locate development in more appropriate areas and move it out of our wetlands, out of our remote areas and into our town centers. Next slide, please. So just to close out, a lot of this data, and again, we heard from public comment, a desire for more of this information to be public, and we've heard that. And we've been working very hard to develop some dashboards and more information that takes what has been publicly available in Lake Tahoe Info, but makes it a little more accessible and a little more easy to read. So we have actually published yesterday these 4 development snapshots, and we'll continue to add more dashboards as well. But all of this information that we've gone through, you can click through each of these dashboards and really drill into the data and see, well, how many residential units are remaining in, Placer County or El Dorado County? How many is TRPA holding? What is left in terms of the regional plan allocations? And how is that changing? All of this information is real time and is driven off of the tracking in Lake Tahoe Info. So as soon as we receive an application for a new project and we reserve units, it will be deducted from those totals, and we'll be able to see that real time in these dashboards. So we're really pleased to be able to present these and hope that they're useful for that tracking. And we look forward to publishing even more dashboards. We heard Ann's comment about looking at conversions and transfers, and we have information available. And in fact, in the backup slides in my presentation, there are some ledgers similar to what she asked for, but we will be putting up those dashboards as well shortly. So we're welcome additional feedback and look forward to presenting more of this information going forward.
Thank you so much, Ken. Yeah, Director Regan, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Regan, TRPA's Executive Director. Myself and John Hester just wanted to put a fine point on that excellent presentation from Ken. I want to start by thanking Ken and the entire team. This has been a very complicated area in my 20 plus years at TRPA. It's never been easy to explain these very complicated matters, and the tracking and accounting that we do internally was never overly transparent. We didn't really have the tools to do it well. We do now. And so I'm very proud of the work to open this up so that the community has a better picture versus a handful of people that do real estate in the basin that maybe are very knowledgeable, but this opens it up for all to see. And so really proud of the work. Just to kind of paint a picture of the many great statistics that you heard from Ken. You all drove over here today and you passed a lot of old motels. You passed a lot of blighted, old rundown facilities. And I mean, picture that in your mind. And a lot of people, when they come to Tahoe for the first time, they are awed with the lake, with the forest, with the mountains. And then they look at a lot of rundown buildings and they go, what is going on here? And so when you think back to that slide where all that bar across the 1970s, 1,600 parcels developed a year, that's 16,000 for the decade. And now we're building about 100 houses a year. I mean, think of the reduction of development, and that's directly attributable to the interstate compact, to the policies of this board. And so we've been really having this very slow growth ever since. And then you look at the statistics around the conversions and transfers, think of it in terms of a project. We've been to the Edgewood Lodge, the first new hotel in many decades in Lake Tahoe on the golf course at State Line on the South Shore. That was possible because the Edgewood Company bought 2 rundown motels. They tore them down. One is now a city park in the city of South Lake Tahoe, and they transferred those units to build the Edgewood Lodge. And so those are a couple concrete examples of what's going on that makes sense of, I think, the statistics. Wanted to put a fine point on that. And lastly, in the excellent staff summary in your packet, there was a notation that I think is worth underscoring as well. For the last 2 years, for the first time ever, the amount of deed-restricted affordable units that show up in those statistics outpaced market rate units. And that also is a reflection of this board's attention to policy, working collaboratively to get big projects like Sugar Pine Village, like the Lake Tahoe Community College dorms, more in Placer County, and other areas around the lake coming down the pipeline. So the policies that you are directing are mattering and are showing up on the ground. There is a variable lag time. It takes time for these projects to move through, but I wanted you just to get a picture of some of that. And if John Hester has anything to add, I will invite him.
Sure, and this is aimed at the new board members. I'm the one who gets to do the orientations for new employees, board members, and APC members. So I try to go to TRPA 101 So I'm gonna, I'm gonna do that. Where this all comes from, if you go back to the compact, Article 6 of the bi-state compact that was amended in the 1980s, like Ken talked about, says you can do no new land subdivision. So if you're used to being outside of the basin, you hear about your city or county approving a subdivision. When they do that, they subdivide one big piece of property into a bunch of little ones. Every little one then gets a development right. So development rights are created. You can't take those away per the Constitution. I think we had a Revolutionary War over that about 250 years ago. So in the 80s, the compact said, do not create any more new development rights by subdividing land. So that's kind of the baseline that Ken started from. The regional plan allocated out those remaining parcels that were not built on, that had development rights, allocated those out, and that number has been going down. So the allocation is timing. The development rights primarily came from subdivisions. Now, when you update the regional plan, if you do the proper environmental analysis and decide it's a good idea, you can create more development rights, but not through subdivision. So we create some, for example, for bonus units for moving development off of sensitive lands like wetlands into the town areas, town centers, we call them. You can do that, and we've created bonus units as an incentive. So you're not just moving a 1-for-1. Depending on where you move it from, you can get up to 6-to-1. But those are the only new development rights, and for housing. Those are the only new development rights that have been created, and you all have done that for policy reasons. Maybe not you all specifically here, but the boards through the years. The other thing that the board did, and Shelley Aldine will remember this, we brought in a guy who wrote the book on development rights, and he gave us the dubious distinction of having the most complex development rights system in the country. Shelley will remember he told us that. And the reason we brought him in was because, as Ken showed you, we were seeing a need for housing, and we were not seeing the commercial and the hotel room pools being used. So the board said, well, and we actually had a study done by a company called BAE that said, you might want to consider being able to move those from one type to the other to reflect the market. You have a need for housing, you don't have so much for commercial and for hotels. And so that's when the development right conversions Ken talked about were created. There was an environmental analysis done based on trips, so you got equivalent changes. So we aren't increasing trips by moving them, but we're moving them to where we think there's a need. We know there's a need for housing. So that's kind of a 101 on why we've got a limited pool and how we can play around with it, but it's not growing unless you all make a decision to create bonus units for the purposes of environmental protection or housing or something like that. So that's kind of a 101. Just thought that might help, especially for you three who are relatively new. Thanks.
Thank you. And just a reminder to the board members, today's presentation is information only, but if anyone has questions or comments, now's that time. And I'm just going to start this way because otherwise I won't make eye contact with Shelley. Just to make sure. Are you good?
I just have a quick.
Sure. Okay. And then I promise I'll come around this way. Thank you.
So I think Ann Nichols, her comment had to do with, you can transfer these various types of development rights. And as John just pointed out, it all has to do with, equivalent trip generation. I think her point was that if you convert commercial to residential, there are no controls aside from local controls with respect to how many people are occupying that new home. So it may translate into an increased people capacity, even though the number of trips may be equivalent to the commercial development that has been redeveloped or removed. And so I think that was probably, but I'm not sure there's a way of effectively dealing with that without really impinging upon property rights. So I just wanted to state that for the record. And then do you ever view, and this is kind of projecting into the future, my concern has always been, as we provide more affordable housing and people can live in the basin, shop in the basin, look for products that they need without leaving the basin and commuting in from surrounding areas, the need for commercial at some point may increase. I mean, the objective is to have them shop at home, right? To reduce the total number of trips. So have we given any thought to what the floor might be on these commercial floor area conversions so that we retain some commercial? I know right now it's not really an issue because we've got only 488,848 or 94 square feet that's not been assigned. But I'm assuming at some point we're going to want to retain some of that commercial square footage to meet the needs of the people who are now living in the basin and shopping in the basin.
John Hester, Chief Operating Officer, for the record. Yes, we have, and I think that's the whole point of the conversions is if there's a market for commercial, somebody's not going to convert it to something else. If there isn't a market for it, but there is a market for housing, they can. So we haven't said, because you may remember when we had to look at development rights about 2015, if I recall, they said, you've created these artificial pools that you can't move it between, and you need to free that up so the market can work. So I think what we're saying is we've looked at it in terms of opening it up so it can move to where the market thinks it needs to move, rather than us trying to say, oh, 10 years from now, we're going to need this much less or this much more commercial floor area. As you know, all of us who've been around for a little bit of time have seen the retail, brick and mortar, commercial way of doing business change significantly, and it's still changing. So we don't really know enough to say it should stay this way. So we've tried to take a better approach, which is to let the market do it. So that's how I would address your issue.
Yeah, no, I just, I like to be kind of anticipatory, and, my recommendation would be to carve out some of that commercial floor area and retain it as commercial floor area, just in anticipation that the market will change.
And Madam Chair, if I may, it's an excellent question. Thank you, Board Member Aldean. In about 5 or 6 years, this board will be wrestling with the allocations timing because the regional plan doesn't expire, but the allocation distribution of that 130 residential a year will. That's the slide Ken had with 3,000 allocations left. This board will be wrestling with those very issues. So I think trends are changing by the second. So I think that will be something to take into consideration about the conversions and if you want to lock in certain floors, but it will be a topic to come back.
Madam Chair, could I follow up on this
Please.
line of discussion? Thank
Please.
you, Cindy Gustafson, for the record. As it relates to those conversions, the one that I'm most familiar with within my county are typically trying to incentivize town center reinvestment. So they're not being converted out to lakefront homes elsewhere. They're really staying in the town centers, which is what we're trying to drive with increases in infrastructure, environmental restoration, and revitalization of our town centers. Do we track that as well as to the locations the commercial square footage came from and where it is going?
Yes, Ken probably can answer this better than I can. I've asked him that question. He showed me the information, but he can tell you more about it.
If we could actually, if I could ask in the backup slides, there's actually a slide titled Approved Transfers. If we could bring that up. This actually shows, and again, this is one of the dashboards that I mentioned we'll be working on shortly and adding to that. But you can see here, this is the regional scale. But really that top section looks at how transfers are relocating development from our remote areas into our town centers, and also from our sensitive areas, stream environment zones being the most sensitive wetlands, and other sensitive areas being other low capability lands, again, sort of surrounding those wetlands that we then still want to move to that non-sensitive. And so we're definitely seeing particularly commercial floor area moving out of non-sensitive. And you can see here the commercial floor area. The challenge that we're having is similar to what we were saying is there are sometimes needs that you want to have some of that commercial opportunity supporting your more remote
Right,
areas,
neighborhood centers, so people
Yeah.
don't have to drive into town, right?
Yeah, so that has happened a little bit, and so some of the transfers that we're seeing are actually kind of going opposite and moving further out, especially with some of the residential units. The tourist accommodation one, just to highlight, and Director Reagan mentioned this, but the Edgewood, the relocation from Edgewood, those units were actually in a town center. And Edgewood is not considered a town center, even though it's like immediately adjacent to the casino core. But that shows up as a remote area, even though it's walkable to the casino core and walkable to the town center. So that's why that number kind of stands out. But again, we are tracking all of this. Every single transaction shows, is it moving from the lane capability, and is it moving from a remote to center? I also just, if we could go maybe up 2 slides to there's a it says American Community Survey. I wanted to also highlight, Ms. Alvin, the regarding population, and this is data. So the American Community Survey is from the U.S. Census Bureau, and what it looks at is a 5-year average of population. And so what these sort of bars are showing is the combined population from the California and Nevada side of the region. And we did certainly see an uptick sort of as you're going into COVID and within the first year or two during the pandemic. But you can see really the last several years as that influx then leveled off and then started to go the opposite direction, is we're not seeing a significant change in our regional population. And this is at the same time that we've seen roughly about 300 new units being created through conversions. And again, as we said, roughly about 100 new residential units being built a year. So we're not really seeing that population change happening with the data that we have now. As part of that, and again, if you remember back a year or so ago, I presented on some of the census data as it was coming out from the 2020 census. And one of the things that we were seeing is that the average age of our population was actually increasing and getting older. And so that average of 2.4 people per household is actually going down a little bit at the same time. And we're seeing an increase in second homes and things like that. So population, there's a lot of dynamics happening, but we're not seeing that shift from conversions or from transfers in the data that we're seeing for population.
It's John Hester again. I want to add a couple things to both questions. As you can see, definitions are really important, because that number would have been different if Edgewood was in a town center, which some should argue it should be. But what's more important, I think, here, and Julie kind of hit on it, was the allocations are going to run out and the development rights will have been allocated. And so policy-wise, you as a board in about 5 years are going to need to talk about what can we use as incentives and disincentives if they're not allocations. What we are trying to do as staff to help that is to get these kinds of information systems online, so we don't have to guess in 5 years what's going to happen. Every year, or even more frequently, some of this real time on the dashboards, you can see and adjust. And so the regional plan used to be updated every so often. As you know, now it's updated on an ongoing basis. We say in our documents it's a 4-year cycle because of the Metropolitan Planning Organization requirements, but really we're trying to get into real time as much as possible. And I know I'm spending a little extra time answering these things, but I hope they help for the strategic planning session.
Very much so. Thank you. What I think I'm going to do is start over on Alex's end and come around. And then if everyone can try to keep it, if you have a bunch of questions or comments, just so everyone has a chance to speak, and then I'll come back around. And Alex, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Okay. 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 Mr. Bass.
Yeah, thank you. It's really great to see transparency in data It does raise a lot of questions for me though, and I've talked about this a lot through the years, which is a residential unit of use that is also can be an overnight rental or a short-term rental. And in no way am I trying to say that we need to, well, we may need to restrict, and I think that's why it's really important that we get the data. And as we're doing this, the residential unit of use, in my opinion, needs to be split into three categories. You have a true resident that is, you know, a resident of Tahoe. We have a second home that is still a resident of Tahoe, but they're only here probably maybe 12 weeks a year at the most. And we have overnight rentals, right? And that really, an overnight rental, if we look at the VMT, and I'm sure what the environmental review is very similar to a TAU. And I've said before that, again, this is a decision that came way before my time. And it was, I believe, in 2011, which is way before we had Airbnb and VRBO and kind of what has happened in the Airbnb market. And so I just think when we're getting this data and building this platform, it would be really good to consider making that clarification in the RUUs so that we know, because some of the things that came to light for me when we looked at the 1987 effect of TAUs coming down and RUUs coming up greatly, and you look at the effect of, I'll just put it out that we may have had, you know, 1,000 VHRs in 1987, and we're probably up to 7,000 now. And if you look at the trend of tourist travel into VHRs, we clearly have as many TAUs that we did, but the way we're presenting the data because of the ability for it to live under an RUU isn't really showing it. And so when we want to make data informed decisions, it'd really be great to see that broken apart. Again, really just for us to make the best decisions as we're moving forward. I think that it also could help us when we talk about housing, and we look in 5 years at these new allocations. Maybe we only want to give these allocations to pure residents, right? And we want to limit what is second home. And again, I know there's probably some legal questions here, but I think there is our ability to control the land and land use. And that is what we're talking about. Or at that point, it may be decided that, hey, we need to actually move overnight rentals into TAUs, create more TAUs so we don't reduce them, but we don't want to see more of those. When we want the allocations, we want them to go into a true residential unit of use. And so I think it's, again, something that's probably even more of a tomorrow discussion or whatever, but I think it really brought up those points, as well as with the conversion, looking at, you know, taking a residential, or excuse me, taking a TAU and allowing it to become a residential unit of use. Well, if that becomes a VHR and an overnight rental, you've basically got the same thing. And if it's a 5-bedroom overnight rental, it could be considered 5 TAUs, because a 1 TAU can be 180 square foot motel room. So I think these are just things, again, for us to consider. And it's great data for us to have as we move forward. So thank you.
Any comment? Good deal. All right. Cindy, anything else?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, thanks to staff. I do think the
Brooke said she gets to go twice because we like it.
Oh, sorry. The context is really informative, I think, to the public as well, because I think so many of our newer local residents don't recall those, you know, the caps and the building moratoriums and what led to where we are today. And so they come today and hear issues, and it's great to have this context of how we got here and what we're struggling with now. 2 quick questions on the conversion of existing homes. So Placer County has a program where we help people buy homes and deed restrict them. Are those counted in the deed restricted, or is it just new construction?
Generally, the numbers that we're showing here are TRPA deed restrictions, which generally come with a bonus unit
Okay.
that is assigned. We have worked with other local jurisdictions on some of the information that we've collected for affordable housing, for example, in the region, or deed restricted housing. We as part of the Cultivating Communities initiative, we do have dashboards that show, you know, the existing housing stock, and we can show them there. But yeah, this,
We don't have that many. I think we have 17 that we've helped purchase now. But when Julie mentioned earlier that we have a certain amount of deed restricted, I didn't think it included kind of that workforce. It was more the achievable, or I mean, the affordable units that have been built.
If I can try to anticipate where you might be going, we have talked about, and we have allowed people who have market rate residential units of use, RUUs, for people who didn't know what Cody was talking about. That's okay. See how easy it is to get to jargon land. But anyway, and they want to deed restrict them using one of our bonus units. That then gives them something they can sell. That's they can sell their market rate unit. And so that's an incentive, if you will. And yeah, I know we're getting into nuances, but all of those little things are the things Julie mentioned we're going to have to re-examine in a few years.
Absolutely. And just two quick other comments, not questions. One is last week I was at the California Counties Association meeting, Cody, to your point, and spent quite a bit of time with the Monterey County supervisors learning about some of the innovations they're using on workforce housing. But what they shared on, especially on short-term rentals, was the conversion to 30-day rentals as the game. And so we can't regulate that. And so that's why we consciously capped ours, but didn't go into starting to do different things. So there's a lot of nuances around that entire how homes are used. And we're fortunate that we haven't hit the cap, nor have we seen tremendous growth. In fact, that leads me to my second point. When we hit the cap and no new construction coming into the basin, the local governments are going to have some real challenges moving forward. And while we see turnover in property tax up here more than other areas of our county, counties and local governments depend on growth, and in property tax revenue is a significant portion of how we provide services. So, making sure that we're preparing our fellow board members and those who follow us in these seats of what they could be facing to continue to deliver, especially public safety with sheriff, DA, probation, and fire are very dependent on property tax revenue, and making sure that we continue that. So just a side note there. Thank you.
And then clearly the best for last.
I felt like, a little kid, like, Mom, what's happening? So, no, thank you. A lot of really good comments have been made, good questions. I agree with your concerns wholeheartedly. I just want to maybe make a comment from a different perspective that I think Placer County, might want to look at what El Dorado County has done. And that is, we have worked closely with TRPA to identify all the assets that the county has in regards to these assets. So, and then when you understand what you have, which TRPA can't readily just go, oh, El Dorado County has this many TAUs, this many RUs. It doesn't work like that. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So we worked closely with TRPA to identify all of that so that we can start utilizing, City of South Lake Tahoe, start utilizing those assets to help bring about development that the community embraces and wants. And that's an angle that I don't think we've really taken before. So just wanted to encourage that and want to, you have to.
Yeah.
Maybe we've copied you then.
No, we copied you.
Mr. Katzman, thank you for the presentation. This is such a difficult topic. And so everyone okay?
We might need to take a break.
Okay, so
Let's take a break. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Just so everyone knows, we had a medical emergency in the room, but we are resuming the meeting now. I didn't see any more questions or comments. I know that Brooke was wrapping up questions on 7A, so I'm looking at my board to make sure it's okay to move on to 7B. I'm not seeing anyone with any last minute questions. Thank you. So let's move on then to agenda item 7B. which is reporting and accountability permit tracking update. Information is on page 79, and staff, please take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the board. My name's Jean McNamara. I'm with the Reporting and Accountability Department. And just some background on what we're going to be talking about this morning is we were before the board last September. It was Ken gave a presentation and discussed some recommendations for improving tracking of ongoing requirements from permits. These recommendations were endorsed by the board, so I'm here to give you all kind of an update and a status on where we are with implementing those recommendations. Next slide. TRPA issues hundreds of permits each year and has since the agency's inception in the 70s. And it's important to note that those permits contain valuable information, things like water quality mitigation fees paid, things like which residential allocations are being used, and the approved on-site land coverage. This is just some scans from a permit, and you can see what I highlighted, things that we're tracking. All this information gets inputted into the parcel tracker in Lake Tahoe info, and then gets exported to our data systems where we use this information to do analysis on a regional level. Next slide. So when TRPA began issuing permits in the 70s and 80s, it was all through paper. That continued until 2017, where we started to explore taking in some applications electronically. And that continued until COVID hit. And then the agency pivoted to really, taking all these applications in electronically. And that's continued since then. And now we get about 80% of our applications in electronic form. And that means there's no paper records for those. Next slide, please. But what about all the paper permits that we issued for decades before that? In 2016, TRPA implemented a strategic priority to digitize paper records. We slowly made progress through funds that we received through the American Rescue Plan Act, and then also through the state of Nevada. And we were able to hire an offsite scanning contractor, which really accelerated our efforts to get these files digitized. The pictures on this slide are just showing one corner of the large file rooms that we have at our offices that have all these historic files. I took the photo on the left in 2016, right when we were starting this. And then just a couple of months ago, took a photo of that same area. This is just one wall of the file room. You can see all the empty shelves that we have. It's just showing the progress. And so we have about 27,000 TRPA paper records, such as permits, verifications, that have been scanned by our scanning contractor. And this represents about 50% of our paper records. We still have a lot of work to do, but we've made significant progress. And then having these records available electronically means that the planners, our MOU partners, homeowners, and consultants can view these files online without having to drive to the TRPA offices to view them. And it results in more efficient permit review. Next slide. So back to information contained in TRPA permits, beyond tracking the development rights and the fees paid through permits, there are longer term reporting requirements that need to be tracked. This is a screenshot from the Tahoe Blue Event Center permit. And you can, it shows like the fees paid, coverage information, but it also includes some long-term reporting requirements, which I've highlighted in yellow. Next slide. So when we were before the board last September, we outlined that there were 3 types of permitting conditions. There's those that are handled prior to the permit being acknowledged. There are some that are handled through construction, and then there are some that are post-construction commitments. The agency's current systems provide good standardized tracking for the first 2 types of conditions, but post-construction conditions have not been tracked in a centralized location. And our priority was to work on centralizing these types of requirements for better tracking and follow-up. Next slide. We went through an RFP process for a tracking system and received a number of proposals. We ultimately selected the Beacon tracking system, which was developed by Environmental Science Associates, also known as ESA, as it had the strongest alignment with the RFP requirements. This system was initially developed for the California Department of Water Resources for the Delta Conveyance Project, which is a very large, complex project with a lot of requirements. It is an off-the-shelf system, but also allows some TRPA customization, which we're working on. Next slide. So what the system allows us to do is to catalog requirements and develop libraries and of things like source documents, which are permits or mitigation monitoring plans. It allows us to organize the requirements into actions and due dates, and it allows us to track when things are due and to send out reminders. Next slide. So just an example of how the system works. This is a project that was approved by the board in 2021. This is the Round Hill Pines Resort intersection project. And it included a requirement to report back to the governing board 1 year post-construction on some traffic monitoring that needed to happen. So this is a screenshot of the system. And you can see this is just an overview of the project, and it's showing that there's a source document, which is the TRPA permit. Next slide. And then when you get to the actual requirement itself, this is the full text from the permit. Next slide. So the construction of this project was completed in 2023. And the monitoring findings were presented back to the board in June 2024, which is within 1 year of construction being completed. So that shows that this requirement has been completed, as you can see on the right. This is a fairly simple project to track or requirement because it is a one-time thing, but we do have more complex ones that require recurring reports to be submitted. So for an example of that, if you could go to the next slide, please. The Homewood Gondola project, they had a requirement to submit monthly and annual community access plan reports as a part of their approval, and it needed to start as soon as the resort opened for winter operation. So again, here's the full text of the permit condition. And then what's highlighted in red is this one permit condition included like 2 separate requirements, the monthly requirement and then the annual report to be submitted. So we track those independently in this system. Next slide. So to go into some more detail about tracking the monthly reporting requirement, which is to submit a monthly report for each month that the resort is open for winter operation. So on the right, highlighted in green, you can see that 4 monthly reports have been submitted. So that was December through March of this year, which matches the time frame that the resort was open for winter operations. On the left, orange, highlighted in orange, is all the upcoming reports that are going to be required. So this is recurring that has to happen as long as the resort is operating. You can see the summer months are marked off there as not applicable because they're not open for winter operations. And then on the top left, highlighted in blue, the system tracks the evidence of compliance. And so the system saves PDFs of the 4 reports that were submitted to meet that monthly requirement. Next slide. The other thing that we're working on developing in the system is a notification system where applicants will be reminded of upcoming requirement deadlines, and emails from the system will be sent out. It's customizable for each requirement, so we can set reminders of your actions coming up, whether it's like 90 days, 30 days, 14 days. And then we can also send notifications for when it's due and when it's past due. The notification system, we can also include a form, standardized form, if it's like a report that they can fill out and send and submit that. Next slide. So where we are right now is that the system is up and running. We're inputting requirements into the system. We've also created a centralized email, permit reporting at trpa.gov for submittal of required documents. In the past, these were all going to individual planners who wrote the permits. Maybe these planners have left the agency or moved to a different position in the agency. So this is really just going to centralize that, which is something we haven't had in the past. We're continuing to work to refine the system workflows. This is kind of an ongoing process, but we will continue to work on. And then finishing off the notification system. And then we're going to be working on creating some web services to export what's in the system to public dashboards to display, say, on the TRPA website. And we're also exploring looking at other types of projects that we could be tracking the system, like rental concessionaires, settlement agreements, things like that, that have deadlines and reporting requirements. Next slide. That's the end of my presentation. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Same deal, Shelley. I'm gonna start your way. I can come back if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Jean. So, I mean, we've had, in a number of instances, we've had security deposits forfeited because they haven't complied with our requirements at the end of a construction project. Have we ever actually used those security deposits, depending on the amount, to correct any deficiencies? Or how do we, and if the security deposit is inadequate to implement those changes, have we had to rely on the general fund to accomplish that? Are there any instances where that's happened?
I'm going to let Julie answer that.
Sure.
I don't deal with securities very often.
I can jump in on that one. Thank you, Jean. Julie Reagan, TRPA Executive Director here. Thanks for the question. You will probably recall, Board Member Aldine, conversations about securities. And for the benefit of new board members, when a project applicant does a project, they post a security bond to make sure it's completed and the site is revegetated and there's erosion control measures. In the past, sometimes properties aren't fully compliant and they walk away from that money and the security sits on the books. So we have done 2 big task force teams over the years to go in and investigate because we want to give people back their money and we want the site to be compliant. And in most cases, my understanding is we've been able to accomplish that. In some cases, property owners have passed away, things are complicated with their estate. We've been able to, through board action, recoup some of those dollars to support other projects, but I'm not aware of any that we've had to actually go out and have a third party do site remediation. But Steve Sweet is one of our local experts and we can follow up with you for more details.
Well, I just, my thought is if the security deposits have ever been inadequate, in other words, insufficiently large to accomplish what we need to accomplish in terms of bringing the property into compliance, whether or not bonding might be an alternative to ensure that the project is completed as permitted.
I can try to answer that a little bit. John Hester here. We try to take the cost estimate for whatever it is that they're supposed to do and add a percentage to that and say that's what the security needs to be. Obviously, if it's really old and it didn't have an inflation adjustment, then we'd have an issue.
Right.
But that's
Right.
typically the practice we use.
Because I'm kind of concerned that one of the reasons why, I mean, Julie's pointed out sometimes the owner dies, the property changes hands, but is that they would rather not have TRPA on site because in order to be eligible for the refund, the property has to be inspected. So anyway, just curious. Okay, thank you.
And then any other board members? I see Cody. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, really great to see this all coming together. It's, I think, gonna really serve the public well and us well, so it's awesome. But I'm curious on expirations, and I don't know some of our code with permits. Do we have set expirations and permits, and are we gonna put that on the portal? Yeah, because I've actually never really asked that question around when do permits expire? I think we've seen different projects that sometimes get permitted and then they go up for sale. And I just wonder if expiration can kind of motivate those things to.
We do have those, and they have to demonstrate due diligence in pursuing what they're permitted to do. An example of one that expired recently is the Wells Fargo building over by the casinos. It's now going to be coming back with a new project because it had a 3-year permit that expired.
And
then, John, litigation, that's a valid reason to, maintain the permit until the lawsuit or any legal action is resolved, right?
Yeah, there are, Graham might be able to answer this better than there are tolling provisions so that the time clock isn't ticking while it's in litigation.
And then with due diligence, is there a way to put on a permit like completion? Like, you've got to be to completion by a certain point, or?
We typically want to show some of the construction has continued every year. We have a check-in. I don't know that we've had, and Wendy Jepson's here, maybe she can answer this. I don't know that we've said you have to complete your full project by 3 years from now, but we have said you need to start making progress towards in 3 years. And there have been times we've been creative in a tight investment market with what is due diligence and what isn't. And, offline, we could probably tell you some more stories.
Two of our own.
And then just Cindy, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank staff. I really appreciate, have so many questions from the public on this, and having the system tracked and available is going to be great. Thank you.
And anyone else? This was informational only, so not seeing any other questions or comments. So thank you again. Thank you. Let's move on then to agenda item 7C, which is our briefing on the implementation of regional transportation projects and programs. Information is on page 81, and Nick Haven, take it away when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning. It's still morning. Nick Haven. I'm with the Transportation Department here at TRPA. Good to be in front of you today. This is kind of the fun part that transportation gets to present to you all. The projects, the action on the ground. We do a lot of planning work, obviously, and you're familiar with the update of the Regional Transportation Plan in July. And these, I'm going to do a whirlwind tour today. And try and make it a very whirlwind tour because I'm between you and lunch. But this is, like I said, the fun part where we get to show off how we are and our partners are implementing the Regional Transportation Plan and how are we meeting our goals that we're laying out there. And there's a lot of projects and a lot of action going on, and that's attributed to our partners. A lot of local investment, a lot of private investment, a lot of state and federal investment as well. I think it's always great to showcase the implementation capacity of this basin and how we're able to deliver on what we say we want to do. Next slide. So TRPA's role in this, obviously we don't deliver projects ourselves. We rely on our partners, but we play an important convening and collaboration role where we help mobilize the basin and try to make that implementation as efficient as possible, learn from each other. And we do that in a number of different ways. We have funding that we actually administer and give out via the regional grant program. We actually have various venues that we convene, like the Transportation Implementation Collaborative, which is basically public works directors and others sharing how you can be more efficient, a little peer sharing. And then obviously there's also the policy direction in the regional transportation plan itself, because as we know, transportation doesn't stop at state lines or county boundaries or city boundaries. We have to stitch it together. And that's what TRPA's regional role is. Next slide. So that collective action basically is helping implement those 4 T's that you saw on the previous slide: transit, trails, technologies, and towns. And this is a way for us to help us organize our implementation plan. And so we have a number of projects going on in the basin. And what I'm going to do on page 83, there's a map on attachment A. And you can follow along with that. And I'm going to basically start on the northwest end right here in Placer County and do a clockwise trip around the lake. I just want to be clear that this is not an exhaustive list of everything that's active. We had to just kind of choose a couple projects that showcase how we're meeting our goals. So this is definitely not an exhaustive list. There are many other things going on. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please, Tracy. Here's the map overall, and you can go to the next slide. Let's keep on cruising. Placer County. Placer County is very active in the Tahoe City area. So I'm going to start in the Tahoe City area. The Tahoe City mobility plan helped Placer County. They completed that some years ago, and now they're into implementation. And it's exciting to see various pedestrian projects and parking management projects, as well as finishing up some larger projects like Fanny Bridge and others that are all part of implementing the area plan, this mobility plan. So all that planning work that's done is finally coming to fruition via various projects. And you're going to hear a lot more about these on the tour. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. The second project here is the Transportation Management Association, the Truckee North Tahoe TMA. They have actually spun up a park and ride system for wintertime operations of the ski resorts. So Highway 89 with Palisades, you have a big congestion on ski days. They've seen extreme success in park and ride lots in Truckee to get not only visitors, but also the workforce, North Tahoe workforce there. Also the van pool program, that's actually reaching all the way down to Reno. A lot of commute pattern, right, for the workforce for North Tahoe. So the Truckee North Tahoe TMA is doing an excellent job showing how those projects can be very effective. And then they're funded through North Tahoe Community Alliance is a huge funder with Placer County TOT dollars, as well as TBID dollars, Tourism Business Improvement Districts. So huge leverage of community dollars and making an impact in some programs. We also have Placer County working on parking management in their urban cores. They're moving to paid parking and trying to integrate that in. See the little Park Tahoe logo? So we'll talk a little bit more about parking and parking management philosophy and how do we make that more ubiquitous, right, to the user, where you have multiple partners working under either a same platform or the same information distribution so that people can navigate and park a lot easier. And we don't have circling cars and reducing VMT. So I forgot to mention, I mean, all of these projects are really either reducing VMT directly, they're contributing to a system that's going to reduce VMT, they're improving safety. So we're balancing in transportation, not only thresholds, but a number of other important goals like safety and environmental protection. Let's see here. Number 3, hit Kings Beach. That's where the first parking management lot is active. And so that's a great advancement for Tahoe City. I mean, for Placer County, excuse me. Moving over to Incline Village. Yeah, you can move to the photos. Thanks. Me and Tracy are mind melding here because I probably won't stop and be quiet for 2 seconds. Okay, so as you heard from some public comment, we have been looking at trying to help Washoe County implement their Tahoe transportation plan that was done as part of their area plan as well, and improve some safety with some safety projects in Incline Village proper. We have been convening with Washoe County and Nevada DOT to try to get some of those quick win projects and not have too long of a lead in some of these larger kind of infrastructure improvements, but actually get some quick wins that can improve safety on the ground. And that's some of these crossings where we're helping Washoe County apply for some discretionary grants at the federal level to again accelerate delivery of those safety improvements. And then Nevada DOT is also evaluating through their internal process of how they can fund and deliver some quick win projects like speed feedback signs and other quick crossing improvements. And then as we go around to starting on the 28 corridor, so the Tahoe Transportation District, you've seen presentations around the 28 corridor. They've taken a corridor approach to managing comprehensively, whether it's safety improvements, parking via parking management, via transit access. And so what we're seeing is the projects coming to fruition. Number 5 is the North Parking Project. So this is a schematic here of number 5. There's about 50 spaces being added to the existing Tunnel Creek parking at the trailhead to the Lake Tahoe Trail. So that's heading north towards Incline. This will help alleviate some of the on-road parking. So again, a lot of these parking improvements that I'm going to go through on 28, they are actually replacement parking. So we're not trying to add capacity as much as we're trying to improve safety via getting unsafe roadside parking into safe lots with good access. And then as we move down to number 6, we have the East Shore Trail extension from Sand Harbor to Secret Cove, so south to Secret Cove. That grant, fortunately, secured its raise grant of $24 million that was being threatened by the current administration. So that is good that we finally got final word that that money is available and that project can continue to move forward. That's in active design right now. So it's definitely a few years out from construction, but it is a very active and moving project. Down to number 7, you have 2 parking lots that exist right now. Chimney Beach, which is we've talked about that in terms of the permit a few months back. That actually is completing and is actually open as of last week. It expanded an existing Forest Service parking lot, added bathrooms, and then Tahoe Transportation District added a safe crossing. There was no safe highway crossing to get to the trail that goes to the lake. That crossing is now completed to provide safe access across the lake. And that project, again, came along with a subsequent reduction in roadside parking as well. So extension of the no parking zones, moving that into the safe parking lots. TTD, the Tahoe Transportation District, is actively working on Secret Harbor design. That's an existing lot on the lake side that they're looking to try to add spaces to then extend the no parking on the roadway and have an active Park Tahoe collaboration along this and have a string of lots that are all managed the same, that use the same technology to access payment and all of that. So again, trying to create a more expected, ubiquitous solution for visitors. And then number 8, the Spooner Mobility Hub and a permanent aquatic invasive species inspection station. This is an exciting project that just broke ground last week. That's on the bottom left here. That was, again, permitted fairly recently and already rolling. Nevada DOT and Tahoe Transportation District are teaming up on this one. This is going to have an entrance right across from the Spooner State Park. So it's connected with the park. We've been working very closely with state lands and state parks on the management of that, as well as the Forest Service. So this becomes a node for future transit along the corridor. And again, it also provides a permanent home for the aquatic invasive species inspection station and is better access, right, for boats and boat trailers and more safe. All right. And so now we're going to flip to the kind of bottom half of the lake and move to number 9, which is NDOT's roadway rehabilitation and safety project. This is you've probably driven through some of their one laning, but this is really a road rehabilitation, water quality improvement project. So they're improving drainage along there. They're also improving some safety with some barrier rail near the bottom by Glenbrook. but they're also installing a little extra width in the middle of the 4-lane section between Spooner Summit and Glenbrook. There's been a lot of head-on accidents. So again, a direct response to safety and improving safety. There's also going to be rumble strips down the center from Spooner to Glenbrook. Number 10, we've got Zephyr parking. So Douglas County and the Forest Service have been kind of working on improving the parking situation at Zephyr Cove. So again, another example of unsafe roadside parking right in front of Zephyr Cove. People opening their doors into the roadway, really unsafe situation. Douglas County is using Warrior Way, which is towards the high school, a large area there that they've now opened and turned into some paid parking. And then they have a trail connection that enters into Zephyr Cove. The Forest Service is also looking at opening a new access to Zephyr Cove via Warrior Way. So that new signalized intersection that went in, there's a new entrance there that's going to have paid parking. I believe that's opening any day now, if not already open. So that's going to alleviate that single entrance to Zephyr Cove that sometimes backs into the highway. Let's see, where are we at here? Number 11. So number 11 is the Kale Complete Streets. This is a long time coming to improve Kale Drive in Douglas County. The Nevada Tahoe Conservation District designed an excellent project that provided significant water quality improvements along Kale Drive that was seriously deteriorating and affecting the meadow right next door. So this is a huge improvement, but then it also provides good access to not only the Oliver Park neighborhood, but also the Tahoe Beach Club down at the end. And also serves, that intersection now serves as more of a gateway into Douglas County and the state line. Number 12, Tahoe Trail Extension. So right now, the trail ends behind the old Lakeside Inn. So there's a gap between there and then State Line, right? Or actually past State Line, Park Avenue in California. So there's kind of a section there that we are trying to connect. And the Tahoe Transportation District is moving forward on the design of this, and they're trying to move to construction in the next year or two. To basically connect to the end behind Lakeside Inn, Old Lakeside Inn, and front Edgewood properties there, and then go on the lake side of what's called the Loop Road around to the California state line. And so this is a project that I know we've all talked about with the event center and accessing from the event center over to Douglas County in the bottom of Kingsbury. So this is a very important connection that is actively underway. The city is also working on a state line area, State Line Avenue, Park Avenue, complete streets. So they're doing some planning work right now. And so this is going to pick up and fill up that rest of that gap, where pick up at the state line, and then hit the rest of the trail at the linear park along Highway 50. So that's in the planning phases, and we're directly supporting the city to make sure that those projects that come out of that are queued up for funding and have all opportunities to move forward. Next slide. So 13 is the Pioneer Phase 2 complete streets. So Pioneer Trail in the city of South Lake Tahoe is one of the more heavily pedestrian areas in the basin, actually, based on some of our counts. You have a lot of visitors going between Ski Run and where Pioneer meets 50. And there's been one segment, half of that has been done with sidewalks, lighting, transit shelters, and this next phase that goes all the way to Ski Run Boulevard will do the same and mirror that. So we'll get water quality improvements, safety improvements, and good transit access. 14 is an exciting project for the Lake Tahoe Greenway Trail. There is a missing segment that actually crosses Johnson Meadow. There's an old washed out bridge. That's a picture of a washed out bridge at the bottom. That was a significant community connection between the more densely populated Sierra Tract in the city of South Lake Tahoe, so one of the more populated areas in the city, over toward the Y. So that westerly, west blue line. And so you get into the Y neighborhood. We've had some serious safety issues with wrong way riders on the highway because it's a pinch point right there at Motel 6. There's no other way to get around. And so people are shooting out onto the highway and basically going the wrong way in the bike lane on Highway 50. Not the most ideal situation. So this connection is extremely important. El Dorado County is graciously moving this project along. We are fully funded and expect to go to construction in 2027 on this. So very exciting connection in the city. Number 15, you've probably seen along Highway 50, Caltrans working to not only put down the green bike lanes for more delineation and safety improvement along Highway 50, but they've also implemented some crossings. This is an example of a crossing at Whole Foods. So they've identified, and we've worked with them to identify some crossing areas that are problem areas for pedestrian safety. But then there's also some signalized intersections that have gone in. All of this will actually also help the timing of the signals. I think that's a pretty common gripe of South Shore residents. Why can't all these signals just line up and I can go through? But I think that these projects will, Caltrans has confirmed that this will help with the signal timing. So make traffic flow easier and also create a safer environment for pedestrians. Next slide. So now we get around to another corridor, the Emerald Bay corridor. So like 28, there is a corridor management plan for the 89 corridor, recreation corridor. And that approach allows us to bring multiple partners together toward common goals and begin to get a slate of projects that can be delivered in sequence that support each other. And so what you're seeing out there right now is the beginning of some implementation with the Emerald Bay pilot. It was out there last year, very successful, had a little bit of a short season. So this season, it's looking to start in mid-June. So continuing again this year, really excited. Thank you to Supervisor Lane, the TTD, Tahoe Fund, Keep Tahoe Blue, a lot of partnership SSTMA to get that going, because every project, it seems like in Tahoe, takes partnership and it takes kind of cobbling funds together, right? We're not a big urban area that have significant resources to just get projects done with one funding source. So very excited to see that get going. Another element of that project is actually safety barriers around Bayview, where there's a lot of, again, unsafe roadside parking, people walking out in the middle of the road, people parking in the middle of the road. And so this is attempting to alleviate that. And now you have an option, right? You have another option to access that area. So a lot more coming on the Emerald Bay corridor. There's also some design work and environmental work going on the Tahoe Trail through this section. So you'll likely see a presentation in that fairly soon. Almost wrapping up here. Number 17 is more of a South Shore wide transit enhancement. So there's a lot of transit improvements going on north and south. Just wanted to highlight a few. South Shore, you have more investment, more local investment in Lake Link. So you have Douglas County stepping up for a 3-year commitment of local funds to expand the Lake Link on-demand, app-based service deeper into Douglas County. And then you also have the city of South Lake Tahoe committing resources to expand their Lake Link service further into the city. So very exciting transit expansions in South Shore. We also have TTD, the Tahoe Transportation District, that runs those fixed route buses. They've also gone to later night service, so you're able to catch a lot more workforce. And then you're also seeing a lot more special event service to the event center and others. So as envisioned with like the event center permits and everything else, we are seeing these services in place and starting to see ridership climb. So it's exciting to see these improvements go on the ground. Next slide. So if you want to learn more about all these exciting projects, or you want to look at other projects that are either coming or that have already happened, it's kind of the theme of the day: transparency, access to information. It's all there in the transportation tracker. The EIP tracker is a great tool, has before and after photos. And I just wanted to put a plug in. We really do use this data because we rely on our partners to input a lot of the information in this. And we actually use this to help our planning. So it's a true plan, do, check cycle where we're seeing the effectiveness of some of these projects, right? And it helps us and our partners make better decisions on what we're funding and how we're advancing projects to meet our goals. So next slide. I think that's it. Yes. Okay. So that is it. Thank you very much for bearing with me. I know that was a whirlwind tour.
It was, but it's super appreciated. Thank you. I'm going to ask our board members if we can keep it maybe a little bit short, just to be respectful. We have public comment after this. So we will also try to limit ourselves. And I know staff is always available. And just to remind everyone, this is information only. So if we do have a lot of questions, perhaps we can bring it back at another board meeting as well, because I want to make sure we have all the information, but just to be a little cognizant of public comment coming up. With that said, I'm going to start at this end this time. And just look at you guys and let me know. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, just one question. Thank you, by the way, for the presentation, Vincent Guthrie for the record. So could you, I don't know if you track it or if it's a conglomerate between locals and jurisdictions, but I would be curious about ridership on some of those buses and the shuttles and how that's grown. If that's easy for me to find, I don't want to belabor it because of lunch, but if it's quickly available, I'd love to see it. And we can talk offline. Thanks.
Yeah, we definitely track that regionally and by services. So we have a lot of data on ridership that I'd be happy to get to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Williamson, and thank you, Mr. Haven, for the presentation. My name's Chris Wood. I'm from Washoe County. I live in Incline Village, so I'm very curious whether the questions about pedestrian safety are being addressed by you, others, the specific ones about, for instance, signage facing multiple directions instead of ones that drivers don't see. What have those concerns, which are in some of the comments here today? And I know you've spoken with Roxana Dunn and others. What are these being addressed is really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Nick Haven, for the record. Yes, we are actually actively working with NDOT, who has the state highway and the signs, right, to see if they can't get out there with kind of their own forces and we're looking at speed feedback signs. So basically to address some of the comments around speed. And they're looking to try to deploy those as quickly as possible. I don't have a time frame for you. Yeah, so we are actively looking at specific treatments, safety treatments in that corridor that, like I said, we could get on the ground quickly, right? So I think, yes, there is definitely a responsiveness by Washoe County and NDOT. And I think the CAB has done a great job in elevating those concerns.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. You probably hear it every year. Hopefully in the next year we can see this map, have a little bit more quality across the entire lake. Again, I know that Nevada's been great. The East Shores needed the attention. I fully support it and think it's great things. But again, it would be nice to see those yellow dots spread a little bit more equally. And as we make capital planning, the West Shore has just as much traffic of tourists and locals, and I would just say the quality and investment across the whole lake is something that I support.
Just a quick comment. Thank you for making transportation really fun. Also, the transparency I've been able to see today across multiple different divisions is very, very impressive. I'm glad that we're able to provide that information, not only for the community, but as you kind of mentioned, just planning for the agency perspective as well, as we're looking at long-term projects and projects we're currently working on. Just want to commend everybody on the level of transparency and making information so readily available to everybody.
Thank you again. Really helpful. Oh. Not helpful at all until Shelley talks.
I'll make this quick, Nick, and this is an unfair question, but in view of some of the public comments we received, um, are there any unintended growth-inducing impacts that might complicate future evacuations related to these projects?
That is always factored into our considerations of
Mhm.
these projects. And, where we are trying to balance the compact's mandate of not only reducing the dependency on the automobile and not expanding our roadway capacity, we just have limitations in the basin. And so I think what we've seen, and you'll see more with the Protect grant and the other work coming
Mhm.
out in that coordination with law enforcement and emergency services, right, who do evacuation planning. You will see that optimization and efficiency. And I think, that is what we are always looking at when we're addressing or looking at implementing these types of projects.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
This is John Hester. Can I add to that? Tomorrow afternoon, when we talk about priorities, we will talk about the Protect grant and what's called the Transportation Resiliency Improvement Program. And we'll also talk about TSMO, Transportation Systems Management and Operation, grant funded as well. Both of those are designed to make the system work better, even as during evacuations and peak times and all of that.
All right, thank you again. Let's move on to agenda item 8, which is our executive reports. Director Reagan and then our general counsel. Executive reports, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. I will whip through these because I know we have had some people patiently waiting for public comment. I want to thank you for your patience, those in the audience, and there are several people online. So we'll go to the next slide. You'll hear about this afternoon, but I did want to show this incredible picture. It's always better to see this beautiful drone shot from Placer County. Thank you. And Board Member Gustafson at the podium at Fannie Bridge's ribbon cutting event on a very cold and chilly day. But Cindy will give you the full picture of this 20-year vision kind of coming into reality over the last couple of decades. But it's an incredible example of our role as a regional planning agency, fighting for funding, working with local government, working with the Tahoe Transportation District and the private sector, many partners, to do a series of projects that will really help revitalize the North Shore area, provide better evacuation routes out of the West Shore, improve the environment, lots of water quality investment and community vitality. So more to come in real life on the bus. So we'll go to the next slide. Just another highlight in my monthly TRPA columns that we pen for the local media. I called this project out and it was worth noting again in the city of South Lake Tahoe, El Dorado County. I had the pleasure to sit with Board Member Brooke Lane at this great event just last week. And the Lake Tahoe Community College, we have the first ever Tahoe Basin Public Safety Training Complex, breaking ground on the campus of the college, which of course is on the South Shore, right next door to the U.S. Forest Service office. And it will be not only, supporting the workforce development for firefighters and fuels reduction in forest health, but also basic safety training, as evidenced just today in this meeting. Our first responders and the work they do is critically important, and having a new safety facility in the basin is game changing. And so big shout out to Lake Tahoe Community College and all the folks that help support that. And it's summer, even though it snowed yesterday or today, even this morning. In Tahoe, Memorial Day often can be really cold, but we actually had a pretty beautiful Memorial Day. And I'm told, from local businesses, they ran out of things. They did not expect the kind of crowds that we saw. So people are eager to get out and recreate, and keeping the word out about cleaning your gear. Boat inspections, aquatic invasive species are front and center. And I wanted just to note that our staff were super proud to be contacted by Senators Padilla and Schiff in California. They've introduced a new national piece of legislation around golden mussels in particular. Our very own Devin Middlebrook testified in the California legislature. And of course, there's a lot going on in Nevada as well around stopping golden mussels from getting into our ecosystem, keeping the quagga mussels out, and then managing other invaders that we have. So as always, TRPA is on the forefront of the aquatic invasive species on the platform that we have in terms of protecting this lake. And we heard from Nick. Excellent presentation. Just wanted to remind the board that TRPA Governing Board has a seat on the board of directors for TTD. And I serve for this governing board body. If any of you have a burning desire to be on that board, you just let me know, because it's a lot of great meetings. But I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to represent you as the board. Alongside our local jurisdictional reps. And the TTD board is just doing some incredible work. You heard about it in the projects on the ground from Nick. A couple highlights from the last meeting: adopting the budget, looking out 5 years, the Emerald Bay Shuttle, which you just heard about. And Jim Marino just had his official 1-year anniversary as the executive director. And it's just incredible working with the TTD, the Tahoe Transportation District staff, and board. I feel like we're really getting momentum in the transportation space. And if any of you ever have any particular questions about issues that are coming up, please contact me. Always willing to sit down and give you a more thorough briefing. And then I just have a couple other slides. We have some incredible staffing updates. We have hired our associate environmental specialist. Justin, our compliance inspector, has gone back to graduate school in Chicago, or awaiting that in the fall. And Sarah Barth has started. And Sarah has worked for the Forest Service, the Tahoe Conservancy, the Resource Conservation District. She was an AmeriCorps employee and has wanted to work at TRPA for years and years. And we just hired her. And so she's originally from Baltimore, so another East Coast get her done kind of person on staff. And really excited to have her join. So we have a couple other staff members that will be onboarding in the coming weeks, on our way to being fully staffed again. We do have several interns, and 3 I wanted to note here. Hannah Morrow, who I wanted just to say thank you. Hannah is our communications and government affairs intern, and she's hit the ground running. But she's also a first responder from her work at ski resorts, and she assisted in this medical emergency that we had. So really stepped up, Hannah. Really ran right over to assist, and that goes a long way in life. So thank you for your support there. We have a finance intern, Cadence Lambden, and EIP stormwater intern, Colleen Hoskins, and we're onboarding 3 additional interns in the coming weeks. Okay. Before we go to public comment, I wanted just to say a word, because I know we have many people online and in the audience that are eager to provide their testimony to you as the governing board members, and just wanted to offer a little context before we do that. Many of you have heard of the great public interest in the Caldor Fire Restoration Project of the Forest Service. And just to remind us where this started 5 years ago, to the summer, August and early September is when Caldor rolled into the Tahoe Basin. We all lived through that. We have our own personal stories with evacuation. And I just want to say on the record, a huge debt of gratitude is owed to the Forest Service and firefighters, our local firefighters, and all those that visited to support this lake. And we did not lose one home in that. And we are eternally grateful for that. I also want to thank the community and partner agencies for bringing forward the concerns about the restoration project, particularly the potential use of herbicides within our watershed. We take these concerns seriously and recognize the importance of providing clear information about our role, TRPA's roles, responsibilities, as well as the coordination before any herbicides could potentially be used. I want to thank our staff who have managed hundreds of calls, emails, social media posts, media inquiries, and more today that we'll be hearing from the community. And these are our local employees who live in this community as well, who have been at soccer games and in rallies and trying to work through this as a community. So I just wanted to thank our staff who have been on the front lines of managing this. This is the U.S. Forest Service's project, and I wanted to clarify that. The Forest Service is the federal land manager responsible for Caldor Fire's restoration. Our role is to help ensure the basin's specific safeguards are clearly understood adhered to before implementation of the project, and we don't have a permitting role in the project. But I did want to let you know that we've sent a formal letter to the Forest Service requesting coordination with TRPA, the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board, and others to protect the lake's water quality. And the copies of that letter are in the back and they're posted online. I'll make sure each of the board members receive a copy. The purpose of our letter was to request a sit-down, a meeting before any site-specific implementation, including herbicide use in the project area, would occur. I also wanted to share with the board, we've reached out to water purveyors in the basin. I know we have some representatives here today about drinking water quality sampling. I did hear from South Tahoe Public Utility District that they do test for glyphosate in their well protection programs and have had non-detects historically. And so I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that and tell you of our commitment to make sure that the restoration for Tahoe's forest health, wildlife habitat, recreation and water quality, and overall ecosystem resilience is upheld in this restoration. So we are also, one more item to mention before we wrap, we're leading new work around water quality sampling in collaboration with the Lahontan Water Board and Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. Water samples will now test for glyphosate downstream of the Caldor burn area to ensure water quality standards are being met. And so that's new sampling that we are going to be setting up immediately in coordination with our state water partners. So a couple things on that. And then what's coming up? We have our strategic planning session tomorrow, obviously. We have June, a big decision every year is our work plan and budget. We have the Tahoe Keys Marina revitalization plan coming before you and a plan amendment. We have an appeal. We have a new ordinance for your consideration that's gone through our advisory planning commission on the monopine, those fake tree branches on cellular structures. And so we have a new ordinance for your consideration. We have the 30th Summit. Mark your calendars, August 19th at Sand Harbor. More to come, but wanted to make sure that you were aware we have a very special summit this year as we're marking 30 summits in this Tahoe Basin. And that beautiful picture of the snow plants is in the Caldor recovery area. So with that, I believe I am wrapped up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Julie. Graham, anything to report?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick report. I want to let the board know that on last Friday, we did receive a new lawsuit filed against the agency in federal court in Nevada. And that's the case. It's following the board's March 25 decision upholding staff's denial of that proposed boat ramp to pier transfer project. The Moody case, that was a project in Douglas County. And as you recall, staff denied the application based on TRPA's application of shore zone code provisions, including restrictions related to scenic protection standards. Again, the gentleman who was denied this project and which the board upheld, he's filed suit. He's essentially making the same arguments that he made before the board. And it's very fresh. We just received it on Friday. So we do plan at this time to defend the board's decision and the agency's interpretation and application of the code. I'll keep you updated as that goes. And then just a quick small update on the other, we have several cases. I won't go through them all, but the other case where it's another shore zone related case, the gentleman who wanted a non-littoral, or he's a non-littoral property owner that wanted a buoy, and similar situation, the board denying that buoy, and he took that to court. We just finished making a summary judgment motion. We're still in the briefing, but we filed our most significant summary judgment brief this month, and we expect that case to be fully submitted to the court this summer. So I'll keep you posted as things go along. Thanks.
Thank you. We are on agenda item 9, governing board member reports. Any reports from governing board members? Not seeing any. What about agenda item 10? Any committee reports that anyone wants to share? Not seeing any. All right, that brings us to our final agenda item. This is our final period of public comment. This is our general public interest comment period. Any member wishing to address the governing board on any item listed or not listed on the agenda, now is the time to do that. Just to go over a couple of the rules again. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. If you don't need to use those full 3 minutes and you hear someone else make your point, that gives someone else a chance to make the comment. I will cut comments right at 3 minutes, even if you're mid-sentence, because that's the only fair way to do it. Everyone gets the same time at the microphone, and I want to be fair with that. So I will cut that right there. We're going to start in the room. We're going to hear public comments up to 60 minutes. And so I'll make sure to start as well. Then we'll go online. Catherine is going to call it randomly online. So you have to raise your hand either in Zoom or dial *9 if you're calling in, so your hand is raised. We will call those randomly and hear as many unique comments as we can in 60 minutes. So with that, with those ground rules, I'm going to start in the room. If you have a public comment, please come up to the microphone, make sure it's red, and go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to need that timer for 3 minutes. Thanks. Hi, I'm Tara Thornton. I'm one of the co-founders of Protect Tahoe, along with Kelly Ryerson and Brent Freeman. We were recently formed after the Mother Jones expose on the spraying of glyphosate in the forests of Lake Tahoe, Tahoe region. And that really exposed a big issue. Not only is this happening here, it's happening everywhere, and it's exponentially being used. The numbers that's being applied is exponential. And it's just now come to the awareness of the public. And I can tell you, the TRPA has a role and authority in this that we're going to go over. I'm going to kind of go over what Protect Tahoe is going to do. And at any point, we're going to be having meetings with board members. We've had a few already, executive team, and all the different political subdivisions in the region on this. So, our position is that we want to see the banning, the complete, explicit prohibition of glyphosate and any synthetic herbicides in the Tahoe Basin, as well as the region. We don't think it's the way forward for healthy forest restoration or for the health of our community here or the region. And we think this is where we can make a model on it. So I know the TRPA is familiar with being both love-hate relationship from the community. You are loved because we love this area and you are the stewards of it. You guard and protect it, and we appreciate all your hard work on it. People get frustrated because, they want to put a stepping stone down between their house and garage and don't understand why they can't. And now the exposure of the glyphosate issue, people has cracked open emotions, let me just say that, across the board, because people are saying, you're allowing the spraying of glyphosate on the forest and I can't put a stepping stone here. So, but I think what we can do is all work forward to create a really incredible model for how to be fire resilient, how to have forest regeneration, how to protect a community and protect every interest that there is. So I think this is really a win-win position for all of us. And we can bring any level of legal science experts that you want to this conversation. So right now, the TRPA, yes, the Caldor Fire has two different jurisdictions. That one is El Dorado National Forest and one is TRPA. TRPA, through the Congressional Compact, you have the power. Your ordinances have the federal power of federal law. So you can, you're in charge of everybody, basically. You get to decide. And right now, your ordinances only discourage the use of herbicides. And what we are seeking is a full ban of synthetic herbicides. I will say in our letter to the board, there is one little clarification. We say in there, like, except in some narrow circumstances. That's pertaining to actually, or is it 3 minutes?
It is.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Not put this into public comment time. I do want to say a couple of things. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here to everyone. You will see this board actively listening. Because this item is not on our agenda. By law, we cannot take action. What that usually means too is we can't ask you questions because we don't want to run afoul of what's noticed or not. So you see us actively listening and taking in information. We hear you and appreciate it. The last note I'll make on that is we read all of the comments that come into us. Every single one I read, and I know my board members do too. So just because we're not responding doesn't mean we aren't listening or don't care. Thank you for your comments.
I so appreciate it. And that was organic. Can I just clarify? Synthetic herbicides is what we're after, and that includes glyphosate. Organic herbicides are okay if they are, like vinegar based.
Thank you. Anyone next in the room? come on up. And then if anyone else wants to comment behind that, if you guys want to just watch that so we can keep running through. Thank you. Go ahead when you're ready and we'll start your timer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brandon Miller. Sorry, I'm not one for public speaking. My testimony's kind of pivoted here as we learned that you guys submitted a letter. So I'm glad to hear the TRPA is stepping up about the glyphosate use. And I've actually personally procured one of the bonus units from SEZ to Town Center. And I believe our property has been used a lot as an example of what you guys want to see. So I have a lot of respect for the TRPA and everything you do. And I originally was going to read the section of the handbook about herbicides. So I really think that this is a chance for, like, we can stop in Tahoe and maybe, as she stated, create a model for the rest of the country, because I think a lot of people are concerned that maybe it's really just Bayer and these big corporations trying to create a bottom line, make money, not do what's actually right. And I think exposing that's really important. And then on a different subject about transportation, the traffic backs up every single day from Emerald Bay back to the Y. It all bottlenecks up at the Camp Richardson crosswalk. And I think something temporary, like maybe in the afternoons and summers, always having an officer there or requiring the Camp Richardson concessionaire to guide traffic, hold pedestrians so we can get through clumps of cars, because or eventually building like a pedestrian bridge or tunnel or something, because I just noticed that it wasn't brought up at all, and just would hope the transportation district addresses that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next in the room.
Adam of Incline Village. Just like to remind you guys, I guess, a couple points. 2024, the herbicide testing in the Tahoe Keys was basically nullified, and the permit was nullified because we don't want to do that. So important note that we try to use non-herbicide methods to control invasives. And then just another couple points of why to be against this glyphosate problem. The Bayer basically is creating some settlement fund of $7.2 billion for how you say potential claims against the use of glyphosate, and that is in response to Roundup previously having glyphosate in it, but they since removed it for Anderson versus Monsanto Company, which finalized in 2025 with a $600 million verdict upheld in Anderson's favor, basically concluding that glyphosate caused his whatever disease, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it is proved that glyphosate has negative effects to humans. So hopefully we can resist any glyphosate measures in our basin, but as was said, it's not really up to us, but we can push back also. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Verduna. I'm a licensed architect who's practiced in the Lake Tahoe region for 7 years. I'm a mother and very proud to call this place home. I'm here today to ask this board to use its voice and influence with the U.S. Forest Service to oppose the spraying of glyphosate and other toxic herbicides within the Tahoe Basin. I understand that TRPA does not have direct jurisdiction over the Forest Service's Caldor Fire Restoration Project, but this board has a formal relationship with the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, has already expressed concerns about this project, and has both the moral authority and platform to go further. And I'm asking you to use it. This board holds homeowners and design professionals to some of the most rigorous environmental standards in the country. Why does that scrutiny not extend to the toxic chemicals being applied to the same ecosystem? Your mission is to preserve, restore, and enhance the Lake Tahoe environment for a region that is sustainable, healthy, and safe for future generations. Those are directly from your mission state on your website. Glyphosate does not preserve or restore, it contaminates. In 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified glyphosate as a problematic or probable human carcinogen. And this chemical does not stay where it is sprayed. The Tahoe Basin is a closed watershed. Wind carries aerosol drift and snowmelt washes residue into streams, wetlands, and ultimately into the lake itself. Glyphosate has been detected in surface water, groundwater, and aquatic sediments wherever it has been applied. The idea that we can spray this chemical into a high elevation, wind exposed mountain basin and expect it to stay put is simply not credible. I speak as a mother. The children and pets of this community roll in the grass, wade in streams, and dig in the dirt. Research has linked glyphosate exposure to hormonal disruption, increased cancer risk, and harm to the developing gut microbiome. Children are especially vulnerable because their bodies are still developing. The wildlife of this basin will not submit public comment today, but they will bear the consequences. Glyphosate harms amphibians, degrades insect populations, and supports the food web, or insect populations that support the food web and disrupt the sole fungi native vegetation depends on. A forest weakened by glyphosate is a forest less resilient to fire. This board already knows there's a better way because you've helped support it. TRPA funded the first Washoe International Fire Training at Lake Tahoe, helping restore cultural burning practices that sustain this ecosystem for thousands of years. Those practices worked with the land's natural regenerative intelligence rather than against it. I'm not asking TRPA to abandon vegetation management. I'm asking for consistency and for stronger leadership. Manual removal, mechanical treatment, biological controls, and native revegetation are slower and more
I want to thank you for your comments. We're at our
so
3 minutes.
it's signing to the TRPA standards, but we do it because it's important.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I was born and raised in South Lake Tahoe, and I was deeply concerned to hear about the proposed use of glyphosate in the Tahoe Basin. Research found that living within 1 mile of the golf course, you were exposed to glyphosate, you were 126% more likely to develop Parkinson's disease. While this is not long-term exposure, this is being sprayed on thousands of acres, not just golf courses. So, yeah. I also want to express concerns of the lack of transparency. I have called and emailed the National Forest Service multiple times without any answers as to how much glyphosate is being sprayed and when it is being sprayed. So they do answer where it is being sprayed, but not the other question. I hope if you work with them, you can ask them these questions and to be more transparent. Thank you for your time.
Can we just get your name for the record?
Jessica Howard.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Next in the room. Okay, we're going to go online and Catherine, again, please click your raise hand button on the bottom of your screen or dial *9 and Catherine is going to call on you randomly so that it's fair as to who gets an opportunity. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 7 hands raised at this time. And again, please, if you would like to speak, raise your hand now and leave it up. And I will lower it after you've had a chance to speak. The first name to call on is Josh Hart. Josh, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josh Hart. I'm director and spokesperson for featherriveraction.org. Our goal is to protect the Feather River watershed and to protect communities. Up here, we're dealing with the threat of spraying on 51,000 acres of forest land around us. The Forest Service estimates that $30 million of public money will be spent on this spraying. And they've refused, despite repeated requests, to disclose the total amount of herbicides, which not only includes glyphosate, but also imazapyr, which is banned in the EU because of extreme toxicity. And I assume that those same herbicides are being sprayed in the Lake Tahoe Basin. We're really worried about the safety of our water supply, of our well. Many people are up here. In addition to the herbicide application, over 200,000 acres are being deforested in the name of community protection and restoration. These are terms that are proxies or buzzwords for timber harvest. They neither protect communities nor restore the forest. The forest has restored itself after multiple wildfires in the past, and there's no reason to think that it can't in the future. Our group, in addition to John Muir Project and the Plumas Forest Project, has filed a lawsuit in the Eastern District Court. We expect a hearing this fall. This would be to require a full EIS on the Community Protection Central and West Slope project, which again impacts nearly 400 square miles. The truth is that tree and brush removal further than 100 feet from structures has zero impact on the survival of those structures in a wildfire. So I challenge anyone who supports so-called forest management or community protection efforts to show us a study where this brush or tree removal further than 100 feet from structures has any impact on the survival of those structures. We're in a climate crisis. We need to follow the science. Right now, 98% of federal wildfire mitigation funds are going toward killing trees in the forest. They want to kill and remove 80% of trees in the whole Sierra Nevada mountain range. This is their plan. So only 2% is going toward home hardening and defensible space, evacuation planning, which are proven to reduce structural loss and lives lost in a wildfire. So we have a vast disconnect between what is proven scientifically to reduce harm and where the funds are going to subsidize these timber industry activities. We welcome people to join our website, to check out our website, to join our email list. Go to featherriveraction.org for more details, and we strongly support Protect Tahoe and the other groups who are rising up to prevent this ecological catastrophe in your watershed. And let's join forces and make sure this is stopped everywhere in California. Thank you.
Mic on, Catherine. The next commenter will be Amy. Amy, if you could give your full name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
Amy Pacher.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, I just wanted to state that I hope you guys will adhere to your strict protection of the lake. I'm actually one of those people that literally wanted to put a stepping stone between my back door and my garage, and I wasn't allowed to because of lake clarity on the West Shore. And I mean, I'm living by that kind of strict protection of the lake. And then to see that you guys already approved or allowed to happen the spraying up by Sierra Tahoe really makes me upset. And I know you guys have some PR problems right now, all thinking that you guys are in earnest doing everything possible to protect the lake. But then to see that this was able to happen is really disconcerting. And I think that you guys could save your reputation by putting a strict ban on all of these inorganic herbicides. And I hope that with that, you can be a national leader in this and not let your constituency down. Thank you.
The next commenter is Al Miller. Al, please unmute to make your comment.
Hello. Hello, board members and interested persons. I'm Alan Miller, a professional civil and environmental engineer with expertise in water quality and solid waste management from my pre-retirement 25-year career with the Lahontan Water Quality Control Board. I'm speaking in support of my written comments opposing U.S. Forest Service application of poisons in the Tahoe region, and I urge you to glean the wisdom in all the written comments and testimony you've received. You know I'm disgusted with TRPA for its blindness to impacts, its chronic violations of the TRPA compact, its illegal permit streamlining and failing to prioritize important matters like microplastics control in the shore zone. We have another case in point here where TRPA staff is managing affairs with the U.S. Forest Service outside of the compact requirements for the governing board to review and approve or reject the proposed activities by your vote after review of proposed impacts and mitigation measures at a public meeting. This is yet one more serious and glaring example of TRPA's refusal to fulfill its mandates under the compact, one of many I have cited in written comments over the several years. The forest supervisor at the Forest Service approved the use of poisons on thousands of acres of the Caldor fire burned area, then moved on from his position. He's not supposed to have that kind of authority over you and your agency. Mother Jones magazine did an extensive investigation and reported that the use of poisons is a cost-saving measure because mechanical removal would cost 3 times more than poison removal. That does not seem unreasonable to me. I see it as the U.S. Forest Service just cheaping out and selling out the Tahoe region in support of agency budget and national agendas. TRPA claims it's all fine under the Memorandum of Understanding with the Forest Service and that staff review is sufficient. Staff's interpretation of that MOU is incorrect and legally flawed. Thousands in the public are outraged, wondering how this is happening. My written comments explained exactly why I completely disagree and why TRPA has an absolute duty to act on this non-exempt matter with significant environmental effects. To do anything other than that is negligent dereliction of duty. With the public sympathy and unanimous opposition to this poisoning proposal, and with good reason, I urge folks to band together in legal action against this to force TRPA to cease its violations of the compact. Experience shows TRPA is otherwise going to give the public the finger in silence. We've all seen it too many times. Fulfill your duties under the compact as you must and cease being a puppet partner of the agency you're required to regulate.
The next commenter is Jay Lundeen. Jay, if you could state your full name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
Yeah, my name is Jenny Lundeen, and I just want to express my concern for the herbicide application outside of the Tahoe Basin. And I also want to say that I think that the messaging has been extremely inaccurate. A lot of what I've heard is that the spraying has been paused. It absolutely has not been. I unknowingly was exposed at Sierra at Tahoe for the cleanup day, all season snowboarding, and nowhere was it's clearly stated that that whole area had been already sprayed with herbicide in 2025. So only this beginning of May was I contacting the U.S. Forest Service, submitted a Freedom of Information Act that has still not been responded to. And I've received some maps, as one of the other gals stated, no mention of what or when or how much. I came upon a sign posted in the forest that did not have any information about what compounds were being used, just said, do not eat plants from the area, do not enter this area. I'm deeply concerned that our forest has already been poisoned and nothing has been done to stop it. It hasn't even been publicized until now. So I'm deeply concerned about all of this, and any agencies that actually have the authority to stop this, it's all based on science that has been redacted, and it should be stopped immediately. Some of the comments I get from the Forest Service are that it's such a small portion of the project. Well, if it is such a small portion of the project, then it shouldn't be any big deal to stop. So do what you have to do, at least make your voice heard. And like I said, I'll be shaking every tree in my county to try to get something done about it. And the U.S. Forest Service said that nobody in this county can stop them. So I take that as a challenge. Thank you.
The next commenter on Zoom is Ted. Ted, if you can state your full name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
Hey there, my name is Ted Coakley. Thanks for taking these comments. A lot of great comments, nuances, and references before me, and I'm not expert like any of them. I'm just another voice of reason from the community. Anyone paying attention at all in the last umpteen years knows that glyphosate is bad and should be just outlawed completely. Those people that I know that use it for themselves personally, for their lawns and stuff, know it's bad and they just don't care. And they just say that. There's countless documentaries, news reports, academic studies, activist actions, all kinds of things that have been taking place for decades about glyphosate. So to hear the comment by one of the members there before our public comments, something to the effect of, we appreciate this being brought to our attention, is really, really disturbing. I mean, you guys should have been bringing this to our attention. So it just makes me wonder who's in charge over there or at the Forest Service that's allowing this to happen. Are they just egregiously ill-willed, or are they, grossly incompetent? And if they're ill-willed, just not caring about the effects of glyphosate, they should be fired, maybe even charged criminally. And if they are, if there's any room for that, and if they're just grossly incompetent, then maybe they don't get fired, but they get really demoted for a few years until they get trained properly. So I don't know what authority you there at the TRPA have to fix this situation, but you definitely have power of persuasion and, you're just professional contacts. So whatever you have that you can do, you need to get this fixed. Figure it out, get it done. I heard some comments, saying, I think I heard some comments to the effect of you might not have the authority to, but everybody has the power to persuade and influence others around them. So it's completely, what's the word? I can't think of a strong enough word, egregious, that one drop of this was sprayed in the last couple decades, let alone in the Tahoe Basin, let alone, allowed by somebody like TRPA. So I don't know if you guys are just really ill-willed or if you're just incompetent. And I say you guys, that maybe everybody listening here is on the side of good and holds no responsibility. I don't really know how the inner workings work. I just know that somebody or some groups are really, really ill-willed and or really, really incompetent. To hear this being brought to someone's attention, it's like, what are you going to tell me next? Thanks for bringing, pedophilia to my attention, or thanks for bringing, people running stop signs to my attention. Come on. You guys should be on top of this and bring it to our attention. And I do thank you for your efforts and listening. Thank you.
The next commenter is Sarah Rich. Sarah, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sarah Rich, and I am a Tahoe resident. I live out towards Myers, and I am the creator of the petition that is going around on change.org. And so far, as of today, we have over 15,800 petitioners, and I would like to go ahead and read it'll pull up. Hold on, of course, it's going to lag out now. I would like to pull up my petition for you guys and read what I've written. Give me a second, please. I know I'm going to run out of time. My thing is not loading. So, see if I can read fast. South Lake Tahoe is not just a place, it is a home. I live here. I know many of you feel the same way. Hold on. Sorry, it closed out. It is known for its stunning beauty and its clear blue waters. Okay, I'm not even going to read it because my internet keeps messing up because I'm out towards Myers. But anyways, I'm the one that created the petition, and it has over 15,824 opposers. And I really hope that you guys will take that into account and try to put a stop to this. That's all. I'm sorry.
The next commenter is Ann Nichols. Ann, please unmute to make your comment.
Yeah, Ann Nichols, North Tahoe Preservation Alliance. Can you hear me? I've had trouble hearing people.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I wanted to give my kudos to everybody about glyphosate, and they've been putting herbicide in the Keys, so this is another step of more poison. So thank you all for commenting. But what I wanted to address today was the entitlements, and I'm so glad after we've been asking for 16 years since 2012 to have an accounting for this very complex regional plan. The problem is complex systems fail, and you've been hard at this now since late 60s, and the entire planning process needs to be reviewed. It's time. It's been really piecemeal planning for years, and we have over 300 amendments. So it's just by the seat of the pants. And, you can say as much as you want about, oh, we're, trying to keep real time planning. Well, you're too late in most of the stuff. And once you started monetizing entitlements, you need to stop the two-step creating multifamily units into luxury condos. How many of those have been done? I'd love to see an accounting of that. And the number of conversions and where. I know you're trying. I'm glad Ken is really wonderful effort, but you got to get going on this because this is still not transparent enough, and it's really kind of a mess. But anyway, glad to see something's being done. Thank you so much.
The next commenter is Roxana Dunn. Roxana, please unmute to make your comment. Roxana, if you'd like to comment, please unmute your microphone. Okay, moving on. Abby Lichtman, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I'm like, there are no words to explain how against the spray I am and how freaked out I am by this. The rest of the world has banned these chemicals. There's study after study after study about the carcinogens in them. So we will get cancer if you spray. And so I feel like you're personally subjecting me to future cancer treatment, a shorter life, going bankrupt from medical bills, along with everyone else in the community. We all live here because we love to be outside. We like to hike, we swim, we forage, we eat plants, we grow food outside, we snowboard, we ski, et cetera, as do all of the animals that we have, our pets, the animals in nature, the bears, the deer, our children. Many people get pregnant and bring children into the world. And when they're exposed to those chemicals during pregnancy, there's a lot of problems that has been documented to cause. So I made a formal complaint with the California EPA, and I was basically just told to go F myself, that it's not a problem unless you're exposed. Well, we're all exposed. We all hike, we all swim, we all ski, we all get covered in dirt from being in the forest. That's why we're all here. We all swim. And so we are all going to be exposed with pretty much 100% certainty. So I don't know how we go about this. If we do, I want to thank the woman who did the change petition. Oh my God, you're amazing. But I don't know if there's a way to stop this with a class action civil lawsuit to permanently ban known carcinogens being used in our community. But we cannot let this continue. Like, we need to emergency pull out all the stops to get this to stop. Like, I'm bringing a child into this world, and like a newborn to be around these chemicals, like, we don't know, like, is that going to cause autism? Is that like, oh my God, like, this is an absolute emergency. If I'm going to not be exposed, as the EPA guy said, who just, threw out my complaint, I'm going to need to move. So, and so is everyone else. So I'm begging you, like, on my knees, begging you, please, please, please find a way to stop this. Listen to the community. This is an absolute desperate emergency. Thank you.
And the last hand raised is Alex. Alex, if you can unmute and give us your full name for the record, make your comment. Alex, if you'd like to make a comment, please unmute your microphone.
My name is Alex Goslin. I'm a 30-year-long local here in South Lake Tahoe, and I just had a few things to say about this. A lot of people have already kind of jumped in, so I'm not going to read off a script, and just a few things that I want to bring up. I mean, the TRPA, I mean, you guys, at least in my mind, I know that you guys have done a lot of great things. And, you've had been kind of earning a bad reputation lately. I mean, somebody about the pavers. I mean, I remember going in to look through your Pantone book, and just the thought of being ticketed for having, the wrong shade of brown, that could be an issue. And they are out there spraying poison into our forest, and you guys are going to write a letter. That's not good enough. And not only is that not good enough, you guys don't even think that this is important enough to put this on the agenda. Unless I'm getting this wrong, that this is something that you guys can't act on. Well, you guys have influence with, I'll butcher the name, the Lowhoughton Water Board. You guys, there's more that you guys can do. And I mean, this is just an opportunity for you guys to step up. You guys could be heroes right now and actually stand up and fight this and just make our whole town proud and fight back. You know, it's like think about our bald eagles and our beavers and all of our birds. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see the indifference that is being showed by TRPA, and I really hope that you guys can turn it around and step up and fight for us, because that's what we need in this moment. We need some fighters that actually really care about this land and this water as much as I do, and as much as I know the 15,000 other people that signed that petition. We need you guys to step up and fight. A letter's not going to cut it. Thank you.
We had one more hand go up. Zoom name is Protect Tahoe. If you could state your name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
Yeah, my name is Brent Freeman on behalf of Protect Tahoe, a citizen coalition that is standing up for what is right here in our land. We are full-time residents here in Tahoe. And the first thing I want to say is that TRPA is not the enemy. They are the ally that we need the leadership from to step up to fight the real enemy, which is the use of synthetic poisons and synthetic herbicides in our forests, in our lands, in our backyards. And now that you guys are aware of how this issue is really striking a chord, it has gone viral on the internet with the Mother Jones article, with several citizens posts, and with the SF Gate article now coming out, and it's only going to gain steam. So what we're urging the TRPA to do is to really just step up into the leadership position that was mandated through the Congressional PAC in the late 60s and early 70s to be able to actually make a difference. You were given powers, unlike any other organization, to protect this land. And even though Sierra Tahoe is just literally outside the basin, it is our neighbor and it is spraying. And if your neighbor in your physical house was spraying poison and your kids were outside playing on the same grounds, just one house over, you wouldn't stand up for that. And so what we really need is your guys' help in figuring out how to use the Tahoe Basin region as a true national pioneer in forest management in a healthy way. We need your help with the powers and showing the world a national playbook of how we can do this in a better way for our citizens, for the biodiversity, for the animals, for the environment, and for really the rest of the United States. You guys have an obligation as board members, as citizens, and as an organization to really, really step into that leadership role here. As citizens, we're outraged, but we are ready to come together in an alliance, a nonpartisan alliance to fight this. This is a non-political issue. This is a humanitarian issue, and we are desperately, desperately asking for your help to lead us in how we can stop this madness immediately, not just accept the status quo of what has been from the large corporations over the last 70 years, but to start with new organic, healthy forest management practices that actually have long-term solutions and benefits to the forest and the people around it. We thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And again, we just want you to know that we are here to try to help and support and be on the same side so we can fight the true enemy, which is the synthetic use of herbicides in the Basin region. Thank you. You can find out more information about our coalition at protecttahoe.com. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there are no more hands raised to comment.
Thank you. And before we go into recess, closing comments, Director Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Reagan, TRP's Executive Director. I really want to thank the members of the community who came over to the meeting today in person and online. I think it was very thoughtful and productive. And I just wanted to re-emphasize my opening comment that we are taking these concerns seriously and appreciate, why we are here. We're here because Lake Tahoe is clean air, clean water. We feel safe. And just to remind some folks that maybe are newer in the community, the role of this agency over the many decades has been important. We used to have agriculture, we had grazing in the basin. All of that has been phased out. So many things that other communities around the country where you have big agriculture, you have petrochemicals made next door to neighbors, none of that applies to Lake Tahoe. And so we already have such high standards. I wanted just the community to know we are taking this seriously, and we are actively engaging with the Forest Service beyond just a letter. We've already been in contact with their leadership, with the regional office, and this will be something that will go all the way to Washington, D.C. So really appreciate the productive nature of the dialogue, and also we'll be taking all of this into consideration as we develop our goals for next year's work plan. So thank you.
Member Gustafson. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's always so frustrating after public comment that we can't respond. But we could, I think, consider educating the public that they should reach out to their federal delegation members, their U.S. senators and congressmen. Those are the people that have influence over the Forest Service practices. All of us can do that as well individually. And I would just urge them to use this energy that they've created to keep pushing forward in that way.
Thank you. And I want to make sure, Graham, we're going into recess, correct? We're not adjourning. Just
Yeah, that's correct.
thank you. I'm looking for a motion to recess. So moved. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. The opposition, we are in recess. Thank you.
And lunch is down the hall and to the right. And if you need to keep something in the room, just stick it under the food table. We're going to reset the room this afternoon for the retreat. But it's okay to leave things in the room if you need to.